Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to be doing another market watch today. We did one of these videos in the past. It did well. You guys seem to like it. So I've got a handful of cards that I personally picked out, and we're going to be talking about why I think they're good buys. We also got the Forge coming online. So we've got core cards being forged. We're going to talk about that as well. But yeah, let's hop on into it. First things first, let's talk about these core cards, right? And I noticed here the charts on all of these cards pretty much looks the same. You know, we had some big sells. Forge opens up here. We had some big sells, and then it just tanks, and the price is going sideways. And you can see this is the case for a lot of these cards. This one's a Wildfire. This one's kind of meta. You would probably run this in a nature deck. The card's really good, but same thing. So what does that tell us, right? We've got a large supply of these cards and not enough demand. So I want to be buying core cards. I mean, I guess you could argue, you know, if there's a specific deck you want to play, if you want to play nature with a Wildfire, let's say you've only packed one of these, maybe you could buy this one, and then when you pack your second one, you just sell it back. But I don't know about like long term or short term what these prices are going to be like. Pretty much all depends on whether they keep printing these or not. And they have announced they're doing a core set refresh, which essentially it's a whole flood of new core cards. So I don't know, they're probably going to keep printing these ones, but yeah, I guess it is possible in the future they don't print them. But they have not, the Gods Unchained team has not released any information at this time that indicates that. So these are probably going to be a pass for me. And look, I already have my whole core set pretty much, so I'm not really trying to cop these. Now, you know, let's say you're new to the game. Let's say you packed 3 Asteriuses somehow. You could go ahead and sell this, you know, grab that 0.01 ETH, which is about $47 at this time. Unless, of course, you thought that this price would go up, which, like we were saying earlier, is possible. But for me, I'd rather put my money into a different set. Now, the cards that have done best for me are all Genesis neutral cards. We all know this one right here, the Demogorgon, right? Bought this early this year, and we can see it just going up. And there's a good reason for that too. The Demogorgon is a powerful card. It's neutral, so you can run it in any deck, and it's become a control staple. And it's also an epic from the Genesis set, so it's got a lot of things going for it. We've got another. This one's a legendary neutral from the Genesis set, Jason. And this card is so good in the control mirror matchups. It's just a great card. I love this card. It's fun to play. Again, you can see here it just goes up. So what are some of the other neutral Genesis cards that I think are good? We got this bad daddy right here, the Boost Walker. Now, you don't see this card too much because, for one, I mean, it's expensive at 0.0269. How much money is that right now? $119. So 2 of these, looking at over $200. But they're run in Atlantean decks, right? Because if you look at what it does, it's a 4 mana 4/4, which is whatever, but its roar effect give another Atlantean Twin Strike and +2/+2. This card's insanely good. The Atlantean decks are a lot of fun to play. I've got a nice little magic one. I play on ladder every once in a while. I think this card is really good. I just think it's not seeing a lot of play right now because of how expensive. But if you look at the graph, I mean, we could grab one for 0.0269, 0.027. And in the past, ETH-wise, it sold a lot more. If you look back in July, we've got sales for 0.076, 0.06, even 0.04 in August. So I think this card's a little undervalued. And now, if you like the Boost Walker, you like how that's looking, and it's something that you want to play, you probably want to grab this guy right here too. Spiral Golem. This is an Atlantean, 6 mana, 8/10, but this is kind of a goofy card because you can't control where it attacks. It just, at the start of your turn, this creature attacks a random enemy creature. What you can do, you can take the Boost Daddy, throw it on the Golem, and now it's got Twin Strike and a buff, so you get to attack a second time, and that a second attack you can choose where it goes. You can go face with it for 10 damage. You can hit a creature. And let's just check the chart real quick. This is almost completely bottomed out at 0.002. You can see in the past 0.004. Even going back further, 0.01 right there. But this is just a rare card, so there's way more of a supply. But I think if the Atlantean decks ever did come back like that, this is like an integral part of it. And I think this one's a little undervalued, like the Boost Walker, but you'd probably buy these as a set. Talking about Genesis neutral epic cards, we've got the Ashen Drake. This is a 6/5 dragon, one of the few dragon cards in the game, and the roar effect is crazy. Now look at this: deal 4 damage to an enemy creature and 4 more damage split randomly among other enemy characters. So that means it can go face. Now this card, I think, was intended to be on the same power level as Demogorgon. Now, of course, you would probably run something like this in a tempo deck, probably a mid-range, since it is 7 mana. And in the current meta, not a whole lot of mid-range, but I think it's just undervalued. You can see here 0.037, it sold for way more. And this card used to be really good. People used to run this in stuff like the Zoo Light. They would put this additional top end just to squeeze out a little damage. I mean, you could effectively use this as a board clear, or you could use it to push damage to face against a control player. But I think the issue is it's $168, which is a little expensive. And that chart, it looks like it's peaking out on the US dollar chart, but we're looking at ETH. All right, real quick, guys, let's talk about pricing cards in ETH again. I just want to make this whole thing clear so we're putting you guys on the right path, because pricing cards in US dollar can be tricky, man. Because look at the price of ETH fluctuates. All right. So if you sell a card for like $300, let's say, and that's something like 0.01 ETH, then the price of ETH goes down. So your $300 is no longer $300. What you have is 0.01 ETH or whatever it is at the time you sold the card. So it's just more things to keep track of. And also, it's not like it's going right into your bank account. Okay, you sell a card on the Mutable X marketplace, you've got to bridge the ETH over, which it's going to cost you in gas. and then you have to send it to via on-ramp / off-ramp. That's also going to be another transaction fee, and then you do the swap. And by the time all that happens, the price of ETH has fluctuated again, so you don't know exactly what you're getting. So I find ETH to be much more reliable, because if I get 0.01 ETH, I've got 0.01 ETH, and I can sit on my ETH until I feel like ETH is at a good spot where I'm gonna sell it. All right, so let's also talk about how ETH and NFT prices relate, because there can essentially be one or two things that happen. Now, right now we're in a bull market, okay? Things are going good, prices are going up. But every bull market has to come to an end, and we go into a bear market where prices start to dip, bottom out. Now, I know no one wants to see the bear market. I don't want to see it either, but it's coming, believe me. Now, what could happen here? People might change the price of their cards. Like, let's just say they want $300 for their card. They might change the price so that the ETH denomination reflects that $300. Okay, but I feel like that's far less likely. What typically happens with NFTs, when people start to become bearish on blockchain technology, become bearish on Ethereum or Bitcoin or whatever else, they become bearish on everything else. So the price of all NFTs do go down a little bit, unless it's something really special that there's still a high demand for. But I have a feeling that a lot of these cards, they're not gonna have that demand. And again, this is another reason why I'm looking at these Genesis neutral cards that are really good, because we know there, as long as this game is up and running, there's going to be a demand for these powerful cards that you can fit into any deck. Okay, so next we need to look at this card right here, not as a buying opportunity, but to do a little bit of market analysis so I can let you guys know what's going on here. Okay, the Guild Enforcer. It's a 5 mana 3/4 frontline armor 2 guild tag, and this card is very controversial right now. So what had happened here? There was a balance patch recently, and this card went from being a 6 mana card to a 5 mana card, which was a huge buff for it. And so everyone and their mama was running this card in their deck, because it just completely obliterates aggro decks, specifically aggro decks that run a bunch of small creatures. I'm looking at things like War and Light. It's just a great counter. And what does that mean for the overall meta as well? Now, since we've got a 5 mana card, that's a big wall. It's gonna be hard for opponents to get around. It's allowed decks with a higher curve, like more mid-range decks, to come up on the ladder and get some W's. And I think the GU team did announce that they were going to make some tweaks to this card, and the price has already gone up way too much. But this would have been a good opportunity, you know, if you had bought a grip of these back here at 10 cents. You know, they're going for $1.25. You know, we had 300 sold, 324 sold at $1.33, 252 sold at $1.51. This is the kind of stuff you want to be looking for, guys. Whenever there's a balance patch, you know, they post that on the Reddit. So take a look, see what cards are they buffing. Now, what cards are they nerfing? And what is that going to mean for the overall meta? What decks and what cards are going to be really good with these changes? And with the last one, Guild Enforcer was most definitely one of them. So I'm just pulling this up as a good example of what to look for as far as the balance changes go. And I've got a couple more picks for you guys. Stuff I think might do well. The Decaying Rhino. And I like this card because it's inexpensive. Let me pull up the ETH chart. It's very inexpensive, and there's a reason for that. For one, it's Divine Order. The supply, there's just a ton of them, and it's not really meta. We haven't seen too many aggro death cards. This is the kind of card you'd probably run in a tempo death list. We've had a couple do well. Shout out my boy Mobile Fox coming in top 10 this weekend with a nice little aggro death, and he runs this card, the Decaying Rhino. But we can see here 20 cents, right? It's gone up a little bit, but it hasn't really moved too much. Now you might be thinking, well, it's just a normal Divine Order card, like it can't go up that much, right? Well, check this out, guys. Here's another normal card from Divine Order, the Giant Pangolin, and it's had a nice little run recently. Now, why did the Giant Pangolin have a nice run? Well, Nature is one of those decks that new players like to play, and we saw Nature do really well for a minute there. Flourish was a little bit overpowered. They changed Flourish and to give a creature 1 strength, 1 regen until your end of your turn. And a lot of people were running Nature, and they wanted to run the Giant Pangolins in their deck. So we see price movement because of that. Of course, they did nerf Flourish. They changed it, but it looks like the price is still sticking just because it's a good card, the Giant Pangolin. So here we see again, 10 cents back here, and it went up to 60 cents. So that's a 6x, 6x is pretty significant. Now let's hop back over to the Rhino. You know, this is a 4-mana card. It's a 6/6. At the end of your turn, unless you're frenzied, this creature takes 1 damage. So, I mean, even if this comes out as a 6/5, this card stats are insane for the mana. You look at some of the other 4-mana cards. You've got the Nature's Rhino from the core set. Now that's a 5/5 with Confused. It's still not as good as this. And I'm not even worried about takes some 1 damage here and there. I mean, Death has plenty of ways to get frenzied. They changed Soulburn recently. 1 mana, you can get frenzied with that. I think you probably run the Decaying Rhino in most tempo death decks, which is not really meta, but there might be some changes coming soon that is going to really allow decks like this to shine. So that's why I picked out the Decaying Rhino. Next on my list, I've got Isadora and the Daring Partition. So before Divine Order, we had Zoolite was one of the top tier decks, man. It was really good. And how you'd build it, typically you'd have your 1-mana relics in there. You'd have a bunch of 2-drops, 1-drops, Highborn Knights, Master of Indulgences, and then for your top end you would have Asterius and then Isadora. And Isadora is so strong because it's got backline ward. At the end of your turn, summon a 1/2 Olympian Guard. And so if you're playing Zoolite and then you're in an aggro matchup really close, this card right here could be the card you need just to get a little boost, get a little bit ahead on board, because you're going to be spitting out the Olympian Guard each turn. And now with Divine Order, we've got a bunch of new cards we could run instead of this, and I think that's what people are doing. I don't know if it's because they don't want to buy the legendary, they don't have it, or they just think like stuff like Lysander is better, or like any of the other Divine Order cards, but I still think this card is insanely good, and Light is one of those domains that we haven't seen shine too well on ladder, at least recently. And if we look at the price of Isadora, it's pretty low. You could say it's undervalued, but 0.0065 we can see back here, you know, 0.02, 0.01. I just think this card is undervalued. I think it's a good card, and so I put it on my list. Next, we've got another legendary card from the Trial of the Gods set. We've got Helia the Illuminator. So this is a 7-mana card, which I think scares a lot of people. People don't want to run 7-mana cards. They want to run a 5-mana or 6-mana curve, so they can get their weekend games done as quick as possible, or their Blessing of the Gods event done as quick as possible. But this card should not be ignored, you guys. Helia the Illuminator. So read this. Roar. Draw a card. Give +1/+1 and ward to your other creatures, and remove sleep from them. It's also a 6/6 mystic. So this card is essentially the Demogorgon counter. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's why it's put in the game, but people just don't want to run it. If you think about what this does, it's kind of similar to Radiant Dawn. It gives your board a buff, and it gives them ward. So you could do it like this, guys. Let's say you play a tempo deck, you're against a control player, they play a Demogorgon on your board. You play Helia the Illuminator, you draw a card, you buff your creatures, remove sleep from them, you can kill the Demogorgon and go face, and now they all have ward on them. And with ward 2.0, what does ward 2.0 do? It blocks sleep. So when that control player goes down to play the second Demogorgon, it just completely counters it. This card is fantastic, and the chart is looking a little goofy. I mean, it's pretty sideways, but you got a lot of action, and right now it is kind of bottoming out at 0.0089. I mean, you can see it sold for a lot more in the past, and now I do think that this card would probably be better in a mid-range deck, which I guess we're seeing a little bit with the Guild Enforcer change. But if those get nerfed, I might go back to like you know, mainly aggro meta. But I still think this card is insanely good, and I think more people should run it, especially if you're having a tough time against control decks, specifically the ones that sleep your board, like Board Wipe Death or the Sleep Deception control. I mean, this card right here almost hard counters the deck. It's really, really good. Alright guys, and that'll about do it for this one. And don't focus too much on what cards we picked, but really look at why we picked them. Essentially, we're taking cards that are off meta, that are undervalued, and that have potential to be good cards. So anything that fits that criteria is probably a good buy, right? So if you're a market watcher, you see any good deals out there and you want to share with us, feel free, let us know what you're scoping out in the comments. But yeah guys, that's about it. So I appreciate all y'all for watching, and until next time, peace.